Oh, I love this movie, I said to myself as I settled down to watch it. Yep, Sandra Bullock, you are my spirit animal. I love the shenanigans she got up to while the love interest of her dreams was in a coma. But hey, I don't want to give away the plot. Hey, this is MichelleSpiva, and I want to welcome you to today's podcast of Wisdom Smack. So, join your practical priestess of wisdom on the flip as we talk about while you were sleeping. I'll see you then. Yep, that movie While You Were Sleeping is one of my favorites that I like to watch on a lazy afternoon when it's cold outside and I can snuggle up and drink something warm and just enjoy the hilarity of the shenanigans that go on. Now, if you haven't watched the movie, check it out. I'm not going to try to give any spoilers, but suffice it to say, it is a rom com that also just makes the heart so warm, and I loved the premise of it. But today, I'm going to talk to you a little bit more on the side of while you were sleeping and all the stuff that kind of goes on. So let's get into it. Why don't we, huh? Okay. One of the things that I personally cannot stand is if I ever feel like I've been duped, the wool has been pulled over my eyes, or even if I feel like someone is trying to be sneaky, diabolical, cunning, shrewd in their favor where it causes me to lose out. And I'm going to venture to say that probably that's the same way you feel. Okay. So, with that, I was going through something that I'm developing for a character in one of my series. And it's a situation where I was not thinking about, but I was toying around with what could happen when the character is incapacitated and the things that could go on that could go, towards to cause obstacles, tension, and crisis, and all of those types of things. And as wisdom is wont to do, she snuck right on in there and started me showing some things. And it wasn't where it was where I was enlightened. No, she was showing me some things about myself and many other people. And I'm going to say some people, as a whole, that this is a situation where we have to be on guard, and it's up to us to wake up and to get a different perspective on things that could be happening all around us. And that's when I started getting incensed about the fact that I had been, quote unquote, sleeping on some things that were happening. Now, I wasn't where anybody was doing anything to me. It wasn't that. It was just that my attention was not on a certain area that I needed to be paying attention to. And thus, things were happening that I had to put the brakes on and come back and give attention to. And it can be kind of hard, especially in today's world where there are so many places that we have to keep spinning that we don't know whether we are coming or going. And so I didn't beat myself up too much, but I was thankful for the whispers of wisdom as she moved in the quiet to say, hey, I know you are focused over here, but you definitely need to go back over here and wake yourself up. And there were some things that I realized about that. Okay, so let's just dig into this. Can we just talk today? I don't really have any list and points. This is just me sharing a wisdom smack that I got about this whole thing of being asleep at the wheel, if you will. And the one thing that I got was that one of the things that has helped me as I'm continuing to press myself to grow, to change, to be more on my game is that there are things that I can look for. I was listening to someone talk the other day, and I like this person because they are I'm going to say they are a weed killer. And I thought about doing a podcast on that uh, to, say what I want to say about it. And I'll just suffice it to say that a weed killer is a person that they make noise and they identify the weeds that would come in to ruin the garden, to overtake the garden. And so they get very vicious, vocal, and violent if need be to eject the weeds out of the beautiful garden. So that's what this person is. But anyway, they were talking about something in the financial world that I totally agreed with, and it just reminded me of some concepts that I learned a long time ago during not only my MBA program but in work, and that was identifying markers. Markers of note and markers to track to keep to keep your eye on. And so let's talk about those real quick. Okay, so we have anomalies or idiosyncrasies, and then we have systems and systematic signs. And so when I would, and trust me, just go with me, guys. I promise I'm not going to make this all convoluted and complicated, or at least I'm not going to try to. Okay, all right. So just bear with me. The reason why I was thinking about this is because as I was getting this wisdom smack about how easy it is to be asleep to certain things in your life and you're not aware of it, I was like, oh my gosh, I know better. And so, like I said before, and I was listening to this person, it triggered that memory that I was taught this a long time ago, and that was that we look for blips on the radar, and we can look for certain signs. And so, going back to this, you can have, like I said before, you can have random events or idiosyncrasies that kind of like happen outside of the norm, and random ness that can be explained for, like, right conditions converging at the right time to have a one-off event. But the biggest indicator of where you need to watch out for to use your powers of observation, I guess I should say, is systematic signs. And those are kind of almost like A plus B equals C, 1 plus 2 equals 3. So if you start to see these things, these cause and effects happening, then this is where you need to pay attention. And I'm going to just say it now. I can almost guarantee you that there are areas in your life that if you look for the one, the twos, and the threes, the A, the B's, and the C's, you're going to find them. And if you look and see them and you have not been paying attention to them, that's exactly where you need to wake up and to put energy in. Okay. Let me give you some instances of why this is so important. Okay. I was talking to someone the other day, and it was heartbreaking because they were telling me about an incident in their family where they found out that one of the children in the family was incurring abuse. And me being the person I am, a questioner, and having earned the right to be able to have that kind of relationship in that person's life, I started asking the questions and doing this. Not even realizing that's kind of like what I was doing, but it's that deep training that you fall back into when certain things happen. And so I started asking questions, and we started seeing the signs, the systematic signs of the one, two, threes, the ABCs. And they were like, oh my God, we should have known. We should have known. I was like, you know what? Now that you know, now that you're awake, do something about it. And so the person went on to talk about how it had caused anger, and anger to the point of being stagnant and, and unable to do anything because of the anger, the shock, and all of the emotions rushing in at the same time. And they told me, I reached out to you to see if there's a way for me to help with the situation without taking over, because there are certain things that need to be done, people that need to be alerted and all this kind of stuff, lest they come off as trying to hide something. And so it was like, okay, so I we talked about it and everything. And I even shared where they could be able to help this part of their family heal and move forward, and to how to stay on guard but not fall into the hypervigilance that will get them into recurring trauma. And so that's still ongoing. So I don't have any updates on the resolution of that, but that was another case of while you were sleeping. And I know that's a dramatic one, but I just wanted to let you guys know that when wisdom speaks, she moves in the quiet, but when she gets to the point where she's yelling, it can save your life. Okay. So with that, um, one of one of the other areas that I noticed in my own situation that I'm working on, and I'm really excited because I'm actually making major headway. And this has only been like about a month that I was like, okay, Michelle, you got to get this in order. This has been ignored or pushed in the background for too long. And it was just in the nick of time. I'm going to tell you, it really was. I was like, thank you, wisdom. You are always right on time because it's giving me enough time to get things back in order and get them ready. And I caught it in time. And so it's a happy outcome on that, So I'm thankful for that. And that's another reason why I'm sharing this because there might be some area in your life that you need to wake up and take care of. Okay, so like I said before, one of the areas of being able to find out or figure out what are the areas that I'm sleeping on or waking up, that I need to is look for not the just the idiosyncrasies or the one-offs, but look for the systematic signs. Another way of saying this is if it looks like a duck, it quacks like a duck, it walks like a duck, it's probably a duck. Those little nagging things that you have that come periodically, check them out. Trust your gut. Have you ever had it where something went wrong and you said, my mind told me about this? I should have. If you find yourself looking back and reflecting on things where you say, I should have, or I should have listened to my first mind or whatever, that's what I'm talking about when I'm talking about these systematic signs as well. So, another one. Um, as I'm making this podcast, we're going through a seasonal change, and because of that, with seasonal changes, things that you don't use for a while have to be service, maintenance, and all that kind of stuff. And so those are things that we're aware of, and we take the time to do that, or at least we should. But what about those things that we take for granted and that we don't service, we don't check on? And that's not just like switching over from cooling to heat or switching out the clothing from summer to fall and winter. No, I'm not talking about that only. I'm talking about um, relationships, not only with your with people, but relationships to your food, to your money, to your emotional health, and all of that. For some people, we're coming up on a time where we're moving into the autumn here. We're coming up on a time where some people are going, unfortunately, to have to deal with seasonal affective disorder where they're not going to be able to get as much sun exposure. And it's going to wreak havoc with their hormonal balances where they're going to start feeling listless, tired, and a myriad of emotions that their jobs are not going to want to hear about, their families are not going to appreciate. And, so those are some of the things that if you are sleeping on them and just taking them for granted, it's going to hit you like a Mack truck. This is one of those while you were sleeping kind of things. And so that's another area where if you look and that if you think about for the last 5 years, of your memory, that you went through a hard time in October, November, December, you know, it's probably a system, a systematic sign that you need to be aware to plan on so that you can get ready for it. And wisdom, and this is something I really wanted, to make sure that I said. One of the things that I love about wisdom is that when wisdom comes in to knowledge and memory, wisdom fills in the gaps and gives energy and understanding on a deeper level to things where you are able to make creative, synaptic jumps to get to better, more insightful, and keener observations. And that's what that I think that's kind of what it takes now, because the thing that wisdom made me aware of that I was sleeping on was it could have it was just it was so smoothly so smooth and so easy. I venture to say that the average person would have been like, yeah, I just just forget about it, and that kind of stuff. But if I had let it go on just a little while longer, it would have turned into a huge something that I don't know if I would have had the ability to deal with it. And so I was very grateful for that. And it just so happened that I was thinking about that movie. I haven't watched it recently, but I will find it, and watch it again. But I was thinking about that movie and all the shenanigans that were going on while this guy was asleep. That life continued to go on, and it got me very thankful to wisdom, that just because my attention isn't on something doesn't mean it's either growing or festering or becoming a monster or whatever. um I was I was not forced, but I was reminded strongly that this is something that I can't ignore. I can't turn my back on it and just think it's going to self run forever, like I was taking for granted. And I'll just go on and say it's a part of my business, um, that I had not been watching. And I'll just go on and say it, that the laws have changed, and I needed to update some things to be compliant. And so, yeah, thank you, Wisdom. Shout out publicly to Wisdom, to being like, you better wake up and you better, get on it, or this is going to be a problem. And like I said before, caught it in time, getting it done. And I was like, oh my gosh, that was a close one. And you don't want to have that. That's another thing. I'm trying to make this as preventative as possible. You don't want to have things catching you where you're always in reaction instead of proaction. That's a horrible place to be. It's a horrible thing for us to have to live a life like that, because it takes too much energy that's unnecessary and could be prevented. So that's another reason why I'm sharing this. So let me talk about the other side of why you want to do this diagnostic of your life and look at all the different areas. Okay. And the I talked a little bit about it, the preventative side of things. So, for instance, a lot of people put off things that they know they should have gotten done. Case in point, going back to my friend who has family and all of this, they just went through getting their wills updated for their family, for their estate and stuff. Like me, they're authors, they have books, and when you pass on or something happens to you, your books don't die with you; they continue to go on. And so that becomes an estate that has to be managed, and it has to be taken care of like a living entity that it is. And so they were just going through that, seeing as the children have grown, they now have, a larger family and all this kind of stuff. And I was like, yeah, it's going to be time for me to do that as well. And I mentioned it to somebody else, who they're not a writer, but they have a company too. And they were like, I know I need to get around to that, and I know, but as soon as I can. And they have small children, which makes it even more, to me, more imperative that they don't sleep on this any longer. And so I kind of said something that I know, probably left a sour note in the air, and I'm not willing to take it back, because I'm just not. And so I said this, and I heard this from some guy on an interview, Jadena, something like that. But anyway, this is some kind of proverb or something. And what he said is procrastination is the denial of death. And I said that to this person. And I told him, I said, what I mean by that is, when we procrastinate, we behave like there is absolutely no threat of death. Like death has just said, okay, I'm going to let you finish, you know, and I'm going to come at the most convenient time. And thus, we behave like I have all the rights, the warrants, and everything to behave recklessly, even, because I could put it off to tomorrow, because tomorrow is guaranteed, and all this kind of stuff. And I was like, dang, that's powerful. And like I said before, I said what I said, and they were like, you know what? I stand convicted, and we'll get on it when we can. We just have a lot of stuff going on, and like I said before, I don't have little babies running around, with immediate needs like they do. So I'm not hating. I'm just saying, okay, And then this other thing that I personally learned about this little situation that I had to deal with, and that is that things that we have in our life, there is certain amounts of strain and stress that go on stuff. Entropy is alive and well, and I've talked about entropy before on the podcast. um, if we're looking at it from a thermodynamic situation, entropy has to do with decay. And if we're looking at it from our lives the same way, it's destruction. It's the ravages of time. It's like for instance, if you buy a car, or even to just drive a car, if you just drive a car and you never maintenance it, you never put oil in it, you never even put gas in it, you're only going to be able to use it for a while. And if you park that car and don't drive it, on a regular basis, I don't care how new it is going to decay. Entropy is going to set in. I have a family member that has a car lot, and I was talking to them one time, and they talked about how they rotate the cars. I was like, huh? They were like, every week we crank them up and we drive them around the car lot, not enough to put a lot of mileage on them. And then, we'll park them like in a different area, turned a different way. And that makes sure that the cars don't stall out, that the batteries don't just sit there and die or whatever. And I was like, that is amazing. And that brings me to the next thing, that you know be careful while you're sleeping, because life continues to go on, and the things that you're not dealing with, the things that you're putting off and ignoring, are still going through the stress and strain of this life that's moving around you. um, I think one of the biggest things, especially in my world, that people believe that's a fallacy, is that it's a set it and forget it kind of thing. I would say, I don't like to use the word never. I'm just going to say there is a strong possibility that that's not going to be right. There is not too much I know that you can ever set and forget. You just can't. If you set and forget too much, it's going to cause a problem. Case in point, um, relationships. Yeah. Um, I I hesitate on saying this because I've been wrong in some situations where I've treated my relationships like set it and forget it, because I've been blessed to have relationships for long time, decades. And sometimes those set it and forget it's no, people are growing and moving because they are living individuals. And when you do that, you fall into getting comfortable and taking things for granted, such that by the time you do get around to it again, you might be two different people. And that is one of the things that got me a few years ago. And when I say a few, I'm talking about like 20, um, where I had situations where I would just take stuff for granted, because I'm not one of those people that I don't feel like I have to talk to you every single day to show you that I'm your friend or that I'm in your corner. But on the other side, I can't go for years and then call you up, hey, and all this kind of stuff. Um, so these things do take work as well. And one of the main areas that I have found when I do my evaluations is that I have to look, and I have to look at my friends, my associates, my business people, my social people, and I have to remind myself to reach out, to show I care, to do maintenance, to put in and I don't want to call it work, but put in the awareness and the presence, so that I don't get caught sleeping and end up having nothing. There's this saying, he who would have a friend must first be a friend, and that works well in this. Just like anything else, you have to put some time into maintenance stuff. So if you go through and you do this diagnostic, where I tell you to, remind you, look for the systematic signs of distress, of signs that something is showing up that's not right. Look for the patterns that if seasonally, you need to take care of this, or you have a problem with that, or whatever it may be. Know your seasons, know your patterns, all that kind of stuff. Get to work on them. And I am going to tell you, it's not going to be easy. Like I said, we have so many plates spinning. We have so much stuff that we have going on in our lives. That's a wonder we can manage to do anything. But go and look at those areas that you haven't touched in a while and that maybe you have taken for granted. I don't care if it's a person that you live with and you see every day. If you have not done what you needed to constitute having a meaningful relationship with them in the now, then it's time to do that. If you know that there are things that you have been putting off that have nagged you with that little mind that says, you should take care of that, you should take care of that. If you know that you are not fulfilling the potential of what you could in your business, in your work, in your life, in your studies, or whatever it is, give attention to that and update it. Do what you need to. Don't allow things to just go by the wayside and ignore them or continue to ignore them. Let this serve as wisdom's wake up call to you, that she is calling for you to give attention to those areas of your life, because if you do, she is going to save you so much heartache, worry, unnecessary reactive measures, and give you the bounties of her rewards. I did a podcast recently that talked about the best place to be to get the benefits of wisdom, and that is before the peak. Because being before the peak means you get to enjoy the peak. And it means that you get to move to the next one, to continue to be at the right place when the ripeness happens, and being able to move forward without having to have the cataclysm of being unprepared when something happens. You're not coming in on the tail end, you're not always missing out. And so I know that this is like, oh my gosh, Michelle, why are you talking about this stuff that's not all happy and airy, in this season? Because it's time, because we are moving from or have moved from a season of liveliness to the season of fall, where things are in their transition to death. And death is not a bad thing. It's just a conclusion. And with that, I want to remind us that there are maintenance things that we need to do, whether we need to change out or we need to get them prepared to make it through this season. Um, because preparedness and waking up to some stuff is a great thing. And the last thing I want to say about this is that just remember this: people usually get mad or angry when they are awakened and they didn't do it themselves. And so if this has you feeling a little miffed, that is probably a good indicator that there are some areas that have been trying to get your attention for a while. Think about those things that you have been putting off and putting off and putting off. Think about those areas that every time you think about them, you shake your head physically, trying to get the thought of out of your mind because you feel overwhelmed. Think about the stuff that you need to do, but you're not doing. And then give attention to them, because while you're sleeping, a whole bunch of shenanigans are going on. There's this other saying that says, sometimes standing still can be the biggest misstep. And that's what I want to say to you. Sometimes when you are too still, you are making the hugest misstep when just taking a little bit of action incrementally will do so much more than if you continued to ignore, to turn away, and to stand still. So, like I said before, Somebody out there needs to know this because I needed to know it. I needed to have this wisdom smack. And hey, what did I say? This is about loving each other and sharing. And this is me being vulnerable enough, to come and let you know, hey, I got smacked real good. I got caught up. I got reminded that I was slipping on a lot of stuff and I'm working through them to get things updated and waking myself up. Not waking myself up because wisdom woke me up and I didn't like it. Yeah, I was upset about it. I was like, dang it. But if you listen to that little voice, if you listen to your heart, if you listen to the common sense, it is going to save you so much pain, suffering, and expense on the back end. And so that's what I wanted to say today about while you were sleeping. Now, and of course, if you love the movie, go watch it again. Give a shout out to Miss Sandra Bullock because her little outcome was way better than this one. All right, guess what? Yep, my time is up. I sure do want to thank you for yours. This has been Michelle Spiva, your practical priestess of wisdom, with another podcast of Wisdom Smack. Mwah. And guess what? I want to join you. I want you to join me tomorrow. Yeah, because I'm doing these daily until I say differently. Don't forget to support our podcast by using our Amazon link when you do all your Amazon shopping at michellespiva.com/AMZ. And yep, I'll see you later. Bye. And that's going to do it for today's podcast of Wisdom Smack with Michelle Spiva. If you like this podcast, please help us get the word out. Like, comment, subscribe, and even share. And if you really like it, please help us continue to get the word out by considering using this show's link for Amazon. So when you want to go to Amazon and you do all of your general shopping, please use MichelleSpiva.com/AMZ. It's simple as that. It doesn't cost you anything extra, and this show might receive a little bit of commission that will go towards helping to further get these episodes out to you and to others. So thank you so much for listening. This has been Michelle Spiva with Wisdom Smack. Bye.